Hello, this is an EOF workshop, which is beneficial remote learning practices or remote learning practices and skills. And as we begin, I'm just going to be overviewing just a lot of email etiquette, just general, I guess, just practices and good practices and good skills to have when not just also working remotely with school, but also how to communicate with professors, other classmates, and how to conduct yourself in Zoom meetings and other online platforms. So as we begin, what is the primary way to communicate remotely? I kind of just covered that, but a lot of different ways. Mainly is email, especially with a lot of professors, making sure everything there's a paper trail and there's more documented conversations and just documented instructions on how to complete things and certain assignments that are upcoming and stuff of that nature. There's also a lot of professors that do text and phone calls as well, and even with Zoom right now is just a big way of communicating, and not only communicating but of actually holding classrooms and holding classroom discussions. So especially with the pandemic and just the way technology is in general, just more and more as we grow and move on as a society, just the more acclimated we have to become with technology, and the more it becomes a way of life and way of education. So first we'll discuss email etiquette. So for starters, when mailing a teacher, always include full name and class, period, and course, just so that the teacher has everything there. Some professors only have like one or two courses, while some of them would have probably five or more. So if you just leave your name and say this just in math class, it's sometimes it makes it difficult for the professor to like go actually know which course you're speaking of, or even to remember maybe which student exactly is in which course. So if you outline everything and basically say which course and even put the days and times of the course, it make it a whole lot easier on the professor, and would also ensure that they get back respond to you a lot much more quicker instead of taking a lot more time to have to look everything up and see which class you're speaking of, because that will also be, if you give them that information, will also help you as well. An example here is like your name, and I'm just using Mr. Lowe's name as example, the class times, and then the actual class. And then in the subject, always include, like I had here, the class title and number and purpose of email. So as you see, subject, bio is the course, and what the reasoning is essay extension request. Everything's right there. The professor knows what is going to be being addressed and requested. And again, that also works in your favor, as it mostly guarantees and ensures a quicker response time and you having a better, more quicker answer. Basics. So always use a formal salutation. Dear Professor, good afternoon, Professor Jones. Always try to be professional, because one, then you'll get probably more of a favorable response. That if you're showing someone respect and addressing them professionally, they'll show you the same respect and address you professionally as well. And also just shows your seriousness in a matter. If you just say like, hey, or hi. Not that saying every professor is going to take that the wrong way, but there are some that may not take it as seriously and may not respond to your request as quickly, or maybe sadly I've heard of some professors in the past that just totally don't respond at all. But if you want to guarantee that you set the tone right and early, it's just always have a formal salutation and greeting. Also be clear and set a positive tone. Try not to use when not. So or sorry, not when, use when, not if. So when you're speaking professor, if that made sense, sorry, I even confused myself there. So always try to use the words when and instead of if. So if let's just, when you're saying, hi, professor, I just want to know if you have the time, could you possibly help me out with this? Or if it would be possible, just say, when is it possible? Or when you do have the time. Because when you have that tone, if you see the difference when you're saying, starting something with when compared to if, it just sets a different tone. And there's not like, it's not like, oh, if you have the time. It's just basically like saying like, I understand you're busy, but when you are able to help me, can you do this please? So just, again, it's just a way to set the tone and just a little food for thought. Include a background and purpose of email. Use proper closing and signature. So with those two statements, again, like how I said with the subject of how you're saying, dear Professor Biology 123 essay extension, and just say, due to, I know that there's upcoming extension, you gave us a lot of time, but a family emergency came. So I was just wanting to see if I could possibly get an extension of a day or two if possible. So right there, you include the background of your story and your understanding of that, even though the professor did give you extension, just some things came up, and that what your request or the purpose of the email is that you're requesting that extension. And then use proper closing and signature again. So best regards, sincerely, I look forward to your reply. As I spoke about using a formal salutation, always start how you finish. Use that formal closing as well, and just puts the whole finishing touch of professionalism and just respect in the email. And when you give respect, most likely in turn, you'll receive respect. So when to email, requesting extension or late submission, informing of lateness or absences. So generally, it's always ideal if you know you're going to be late or going to be absent from a class to notify the professor beforehand. But there's always that time, or times when you're going from work to school right away. You think you're going to be on time, even if it's coming home, and traffic happens, accidents happens, life happens. So even if you don't give the heads up beforehand, definitely always follow up with an email and just say, like, I apologize for the late response, but I just want to let you know that I wasn't able to make tonight because, or even if you show up late and you're not able to speak to the professor and you can't speak after class, just send them that courtesy email after, like, I'm sorry I showed up 15 minutes late to class today. Just work was crazy. I didn't want to interrupt class and explain myself. So I just want to let you know I apologize, because that just sets a really good tone. And just, you never know, because later you might need that favor from the professor and they may look back and say, oh, well, this student was always prompt, and a few times they were late or maybe absent, but they were always made sure to let me know. And they were always very respectful of my time, so I'm going to be respectful towards them. Apologizing for missing assignments or unexcused, unexpected absence or lateness. I just covered that. And asking for further support or explaining a situation. So again, also, I know we get overwhelmed with school, the other courses, especially if we're taking full-time courses and being a full-time worker, and let alone having families and responsibilities. Sometimes you get overwhelmed and you forget to even ask for help, or get to even think, or like, just maybe you always, some of us have that mindset that, like, why I don't need help, or maybe they're helping too many people. I don't want to overload them. But if you're struggling or not understanding something, always reach out, because not only does it show that you care, and the professor is going to probably later on be more willing to meet you halfway, or more so if you do need the help. But you can never assume. If usually if professors can't help you or they're just busy, they'll probably say it, or just straight up and say, like, if you can reach me back at this other time, or give you another alternative. But no one knows you need help until you ask it. So there's no shame and should be no fear in asking for help. And this is to CC or BCC. That is the question. So when you see your emails and you always see that to who, and underneath it, you'll see a CC, the carbon copy. And sometimes on the right, it's not always there, sometimes right below, but you'll have to look, and sometimes it's hidden on the right side of the where it's addressed to. You'll see the BCC. So what this means is, for CC is like including additional witness or groups of members. Anytime you put someone in the CC, it's going to give everyone the option that who you send the email to reply all, and that could start like almost like a thread. So you'll be like at home, or almost like a group chat, where you'll just keep getting response after response. And it's good to be in the know, but sometimes it can be overwhelming, especially if it's like a lot of people, a lot of conversation. You get like almost like 50 emails all in this thread that maybe doesn't pertain to you, or only a small portion does. So it can get a little much. So if that happens and you don't want everyone to be included in this email, you can BCC, which is for privacy. And when you BCC someone, no one else sees that the email was sent to them, and that person has almost like their own email of that copy, and it's not part of a thread. So I do the UOF newsletters on the monthly newsletters. So when I send them out to all the students, I just put all the students in the BCC, and it sends it out. So no other students see who else is getting it. And if there's responses, they don't pick up the thread either. So that's always a good thing to have. And then with CCC, if you're writing, it's good to use when you're writing an email to a professor, and you want to include like a witness, just like, let's say, your UF counselor or your financial aid counselor, or let's say it's a serious matter and you want to even include the department chair, just always CC other persons that you want to receive that copy, just to know that they're a witness, and it leaves a trail so you can support that you've actually did what you said you did. And again, just a paper trail for proof, because you never know. Final tips regarding email etiquette: use school email addresses when conducting school communication. Again, it just sets that tone of professionalism. And if a professor has a lot of emails and they see emails from actual students or individuals who are actually within their university, they're going to be prompt to respond, because if not, they might assume that it's just maybe spam or not important. And probably just in the back of our minds, when we prioritize things and we see something that's not at our mind like that paramount, because we're only looking for like emails from work or for school, it might just go back to their mind and possibly fall through the cracks. So just a good practice to go by, that using school email to conduct school email business, or school business, sorry. And then think twice about content of email and review. Once sent, it cannot be resent. I even always triple check, because even when I have to double check an email, I send it and I relook at it and I just like, I see there's misspelling or I used the word wrong. I just feel like, well, this kind of just took a lot of, I guess you could say, like, not respect out of it, but I guess like content out of it, or just like it took like a lot of the meaning that you had behind the email. Because if you send an email and you see that there's a lot of errors, and then you start to think like, oh, maybe this person was just didn't really care or rushed it. So I feel like it takes a little bit of the effect of it. But I say always even triple check it, just because you make sure everything looks good. If you're really requesting a huge favor, make it's always good to have everything grammarly correct. Make sure that you're not missing any thoughts, and just making sure that everything is there. Or even sometimes I've made the mistake of omitting the person's name altogether, and you just don't want to do that. So, and also that's part of the proofreading. And it's always good to use a professional font and legible font size. Generally 10 to 12 font size, and the Arial and Times New Roman font style is usually the common styles. If you do anything that's like too artistic and like almost illegible to read, it's just kind of loses the again, the effect of your email and the seriousness. And if also it may just be impossible for whoever's reading it to read it, and they might not be able to help you as promptly or as effectively as they could if they were able to read it fully the first time. Final tips to continue, or tips continued: try to keep emails brief. Try to avoid urgent when not urgent. It's like almost the boy or girl who cried wolf. When you say urgent and then you say it enough and it turns out it's not urgent, when it actually turns out to be urgent, the professor might not take it seriously or overlook it. Again, don't use acronyms like LOL or BRB. Try to always keep it formal and professional, so you get that formal and professional response. And then if you ever need to request something in the future, you'll be taken more seriously. And when emailing attachments, it is suggested that you include file name and format of file. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm guilty of not always doing this, and I've never been faulted for not doing it, but it's just, again, good practice. So when it's like project.dos is a Word document or PDF file, like I've attached my essay, which is final essay.dos, and it is a Word doc file, something along those natures, or it is a PDF file, just so a professor knows that what they're opening, and that they can, let's say their laptop can't actually open PDF files. So them knowing it's a PDF file, they'll wait until they get home and probably save it so that they don't lose it. So it just makes things smoother and guarantees that your email and your files don't get lost in through the cracks. And then also include preferred or additional ways of contact. Just always giving the professor another way in case just that weird time that they call you and for some reason your phone, they're not able to get through. At least they have another means of contact, or just something happens maybe with your phone or email. Just always making yourself more accessible is never a bad thing. And this is just an example of everything that I spoke about previously in the email etiquette. It's up here, just who you're sending the email to, the subject, political science 101, section 5 question about essay. So you're just saying the course and the actual, what the actual content of the email is going to be. So dear Professor Fiji, formal opening. I'm a student in your introduction to political science class, Poly 101. I have a question about essay due next Thursday, and I was not able to find the answer on the syllabus. Should our essay draw only on readings listed on the syllabus, or can I incorporate scholarly articles I read on my own, as long as it fits the subject of the assignment? So again, you gave a background, you gave your point, what the purpose, what your email was. Again, and then a formal closing. I look forward to hearing from you. Best regards, Neil Witt. And then I put my subject or the course, the day and time of the course, and everything is clearly laid out. It's direct email, should have a direct and a formal, respectful response from Professor Fiji. And this is just how ideally you would try to write your emails to get the most effective response and quickest response. Preparing for class. So in this new world of Zoom, I know even with Hudson County, slowly we're starting to get transitioned back to in-person. But I will also, as much as I've talked to students who hate the online format and Zoom, I've met a lot of students who actually love Zoom, and maybe probably will continue, if they have the option, will continue to do Zoom classes and learn remotely. And if that's the case, and especially with how a lot of classes are still online, this is just formal guidelines to go by that obviously don't have to follow them, but they're just tips to how to be effective and also make sure that everything is firing on all cylinders when you have to start your class. And that begins with planning to log in at least 5 minutes before class is scheduled to begin. Just like even with this Zoom, this workshop meeting, I try to log on 5 minutes to make sure that I have no issues with technology, nothing, all the files are opening. So when it's time to go, everything looks good. There's no holding anyone else up to try to figure it out or troubleshoot. Just always giving yourself that extra gap if possible is always ideal. Log into class using your computer to enable all of Zoom's features for the best remote learning experience. Again, just making sure everything works. And just if you do have to enable or download something, you have the time to do so. Set up in a quiet spot away from distractions. That's just always a given and always beneficial. The less you're distracted, the more focused you can be in the class and working with people. And then again, that's why I always talk about, just because you never know when you're going to have to ask a professor for help down the road. And if they see that you're always distracted, not paying attention in class, they may be less inclined to help you, or I should say help you, but maybe go out of their way to help you, like maybe give you a week extension or go more than halfway of meeting you and maybe actually go like, well, here's links to do this or whatever the case may be. But if you show that you care and are giving the class 100% respect and the professor respect, they more likely in turn will do the same and go above and beyond if you have any requests. And make sure you are appropriately dressed. You are still in class. Don't show up without a shirt on for males, I should say. I mean, I'm anybody, but I've had classes where I've seen another guy just be there without a shirt or just like a hole in the an obvious huge hole in the shirt, and it just doesn't look good. It's distracting, and it just shows that that person maybe doesn't take it seriously. And again, if you're not dressed appropriately, showing that you care about the class, the professor might in turn not think not think you're taking it seriously, and may not help you in the quickest response, or may not go above and beyond as they would with someone who shows up on time, dressed appropriately, and not distracted. Using videos and audio during class. Oh, and also with the dressing, try to definitely don't wear anything offensive on your shirts. There was a situation where a student had this offensive writing on their shirt, and that caused a situation as well. So just dress to respect is the bottom line from of that, or any lesson you can take of what I just stated and went over. Just always dress to respect, and respect others the way you want to be treated. So even if you don't plan on speaking during class, participate by being attentive with your video on. Again, just showing that you care definitely makes the professor more apt to respond to you. And then also your fellow classmates. They may be more, if you have to break into groups, or maybe you reach out to a student or a fellow classmate saying that you need help with something, they may take you more serious and be more willing to help you. If you show that you care and you're respectful of them, they'll be more respectful to you. Make sure to mute yourself when you're not speaking. Any background noise can be distracting to your professors or speakers. Again, that's just about a part of etiquette and being respectful to others. There's someone that you see in class that's always loud, speaking out of turn, showing up late and taking up a huge amount of time. Less likely you just don't think, I mean, not less likely, you just more think they don't care, maybe they aren't really respectful of others. And if they ever come to ask you for help, you're going to be kind of not as inclined or as quick to be like helpful for them, especially when they don't show like you or the other classmates of respect. So again, it's just another I guess you could say practice of just treating others the way you want to be treated. Just always have that, being respectful about noise and being aware of it. And if there will be a lot of movement behind you, set up a background, or just make the professor aware. Maybe if you know ahead of time before class, or if there is a lot of background, turn your camera off, or and just notify the professor afterwards. But definitely always try to be aware of distractions. Sometimes you can't control it, especially if you have children or you live in a busy household, especially with the pandemic. A lot of people have been confined to being home and maybe working at home and going to school at home. So a lot more people and a lot more movement. But if you can control it, definitely try to. Engaging with others in class. Make sure to abide by your professor's set expectation and our school's rules of academic integrity. Make sure you display your name. Display name is your name. Make sure I even confuse me. Even how I have here under my face that says, or my video that says Neil Witt. Try to always make sure that says your name, because if you're in class and let's say the professor just takes attendance that way, there's a chance you could be cheating yourself on having attendance, and you have to go out of your way to reach out to the professor, or maybe you don't even know that you're being docked. But it's just always good practice to have your actual name listed. And participate in class by raising your virtual hand, if applicable and possible, before you speak or comment in the chat. All different professors have different rules. Some professors have everyone just stay muted or begin the class muted, and then when they have a question, they'll just unmute so the professor will see that they have a question. So, and whatever the rules are or the expectations are, just make sure you're aware of them and that you just try to follow them, just to be respectful to your classmates and your professor. And it just ensures that the class goes smoothly and everyone gets what they're hoping to get out of the class. Online privacy considerations. Please do not share your course meeting link and password with individuals who are not in the class. Just this causes distractions and possible problems later. And if someone you give the password to or anything of that nature decides, I know this was a big thing about Zoom bombing, I guess it was called, where people go into a Zoom classroom and then show video of something that was like really crazy or outlandish and inappropriate. And then if it was really really went past that line of just being distraction, but then possibly being offensive or borderline something else, then it comes to the point of where there's an investigation, and then they see how did this person get this ID, and then it just becomes a whole mess. And it just to be respectful and to make sure everything just is what it is, professional. Just always just keep this kind of information like ID and password to yourself. Or if another classmate maybe lost it, that it's okay to share with them, obviously, but try not to share it to friends or anyone else. Just again, it just makes things a lot easier. And if any portion of the class is recorded, do not share the recording with people outside the class. Again, just a respect issue or just a respect practice, especially if any of you are going into the counseling field or any kind of people helping field where you have a lot of group talk and group discussions. From my experience from doing counseling, just you try to make it understanding that everyone in there, it's going to be respectful and have that confidentiality of whatever stays in the meeting, whatever happens in the meeting stays in the meeting. Because when everyone has that comfort, especially with like recordings, just more people are willing to share, people are willing to open up, and things just go a lot more smoothly. So it's just a good practice to go by. And then final thoughts, make sure you abide by your professor set expectations. Again, make sure your name, this is just kind of a repeat of what was before, but just a refresher, always make sure your name is displayed, and always follow the rules of participating. And also virtually raise your hand if that's applicable. Learn how to use your equipment, verify your access to all materials and platforms beforehand, develop a routine, designate time each week for assignments, reading classwork. That's about time management. Whole different conversation. I have a workshop that's posted on the YouTube UF channel about time management, if that's something that you really feel that you're struggling with or want to learn more about. On the UF, just to get off topic real quick, the time management workshop is, I'm no professional, but what I do is I always put out information and research time management strategies that have been proven to work, and I just discuss them, and I allow a lot of your classmates and those who participate in the workshop to pretty much give me feedback on if they've done those routines, and if not, what maybe they do instead. And it's just an overall group discussion that gives a lot of ideas about time management, about what has worked and what hasn't, and gives people new ideas that maybe they never thought of that have been effective. And it just, if time management is anything you struggle with, that's definitely something to look into. And just sorry to get back, I just felt that was an important note to make, so my apologies. But to get right back on email etiquette and technology, create a study space, have an area dedicated to studying and completing schoolwork that is free from distractions. Even though I know you're at home and removed from the school setting, always try to have that set area if possible, that where you're not distracted, everything's organized. So if anything comes up, you have all your supplies and resources right in front of you. And it's just a great way to stay organized. Okay, perfect. Be organized. So keep track of your syllabus and work completed for each class, and keep separate from each other, just so nothing gets crazy. I know, like when I used to be very hectic and not good at being organized, I'd see notes and then I would almost get to a point where I'm like, is this note for this class or that class? I just try to stay as organized as you can. It makes things a lot easier on yourself, especially when it comes time to study for finals and exams. And then get to know your professors. That's one of the most overlooked resources that students, even myself, have overlooked in the past, that they're your number one person. Anything that you have questions about, whether it's in the class or even outside the classroom, they're like your first go-to point of contact. So I always just make it a good habit to tell all students that just send a friendly email to your professor in the beginning. Just like, hi, thank you for your class, or thank you for whatever. I just want to introduce myself, and I look forward to your class this semester. And it just sets the tone. You can reach out to them. Hopefully they'll remember who you are, but not, it's always a guarantee, but just that at least you at least set that tone. And if the professor ever looks back to see about like a track record, like let's say you come at the end and say like, well, I really needed a extension or whatever the case may be, and their professor types your name in the email, like has this student really reached out and cared, and they see like a track record that in the beginning of the semester you reached out and try to establish that communication, then they'll be more inclined to probably help you, and it sets the tone early. So it's definitely a good thing, a good practice to go by. And again, these are just there's an HCC Tech resources page that you can always look at, and I'm not sure if it will open here, but if it does, I'm not sure if I'm going to lose anyone, but here is the website. I hope that you're still able to see this on the recording, but this is just gives you a lot of things about good email practices and just how to access the technology on campus, and gives you other resources about Canvas. And also, if you're, let's say something happens with your laptop where you're going into a school not having a laptop or Chromebook, the college offers all students rentals for Chromebooks. So it's a great resource that a lot of students I know have personally used. And that pretty much wraps up this workshop. If there's any ever questions about this workshop or other workshops or just school in general, because I know sometimes you reach out to your UF counselors and I know they're very busy, and sometimes it might take them some time to respond, or even just myself, if I've had students reach out to me and it's taken me a while to respond as well. But just always reach out to all of us at the UF, whether it's Miss Rosie, Guadalupe, Miss Maria, your UF counselor. All of us are here to help you, so definitely take advantage of that, and we're more than happy to help. Um, and best of luck with your semesters. If you need to reach out to me, like I was trying to state before, but got sidetracked, feel free to reach out to me. It's nwitt, NWITT at hccc.edu. I'd be more than happy to help you. And if I can't, I'll make sure I find the person that can help you. So I look forward to you hopefully attending my additional workshops in the future, or at the very least, I hope you get something out of them when you watch them on the YouTube channels. And best of luck with your midterms and the rest of your semester. Have a good rest of your day.